think that's it for twists and turns in this match. I think. Certainly taking his time with this serve. Gets it in. And Alcaraz goes wide on the return. I had a feeling we might see a fall to the ground style celebration in tiredness and relief as much as elation. Wow. What happened to the Tennis Channel? I don't know. What happened? Tennis Channel just kicked you out. I'm sorry, Ghosty, for that. But hopefully my words at least took you over the line. Novak Djokovic is the champion. He rips off his shirt. Novak Djokovic wins the title in Cincinnati. How many championship points was that? 5? Sorry, Ghosty, that you had a frustrating end in terms of the Tennis Channel. But at least one small consolation, one cloud has a silver lining, Ghosty, in that you're going to be hearing the dulcet tones of Damien any second to join me to dissect that. We'll only be live, I think, for another 10 minutes or so because it's pretty late here in Central Europe. Djokovic wins 5-7, 7-6, 7-6. Wow, wow, wow. That scoreline barely tells the story, though. Barely tells the story of the match. Alcaraz looking disconsolate, but Novak Djokovic wins another Masters 1000 title. Does this make him your favorite going into the US Open? Maybe. Dulcet Damien, yes. We're all for Dulcet Damien. He'll be here any second. I know he said he'd be here about 2 minutes after. Djokovic signs the camera. He needs to compose himself to just give himself a few seconds to think what he's going to write. I think he's writing something in Serbian, actually. So I probably, yeah, it is Serbian, so I can't help. I'm just going to turn around. Yeah, it's definitely Serbian. It's got a heart on it. I can translate that one for you anyway. It's got a heart on the camera. I'm sure somebody very quickly can translate that for us, either on Twitter or in the live chat. 14 winners for Carlos Alcaraz, 19 for Novak Djokovic, 50 unforced errors for Carlos, probably a little bit more than he would have hoped for today, but then there were 46, almost 100 unforced errors between the two players. Damien, wow. It was a special match. Just quickly, in terms of quality, probably until the third set, maybe didn't reach the heights of Madrid or London, but in terms of drama, it did.
Yeah, London, I don't know if it was generally all that good, but Madrid, that was 3.5 hours of like insane tennis, from start to finish. But this, in terms of the drama, probably a bit better. And yeah, the fact that the quality was only improving past the 3-hour mark was definitely something crazy. And, in the long run, it doesn't really matter. Like the only thing that we're going to remember about this match is the third set. Maybe the fact that Djokovic saved a championship point, right, in the second set tiebreak. That's something that we're going to remember too, and also the fact that he was down 5-7, 2-4, but mostly the third set is what's going to stick with us. So yeah, it doesn't really matter. It's still going to feature on all of the match of the year lists because it deserves to. Like even if you can probably make an argument that maybe the first 2 sets weren't that good. Ghosty, this is what it looks like when David is excited.
He got booted off, Ghosted, from his Tennis Channel, I think on the last championship point. So he was pretty annoyed at that. I don't know if other people got booted off or if it was just Ghosty alone. Yeah, I think so. And I think 2 of whatever, if I managed to cobble together 10 matches of the year, maybe 5 on the men's and 5 on the women's side, 2 of those 5 will definitely feature Carlos Alcaraz against Novak Djokovic. I just can't see there being any other matches really right now. Obviously, the 2 I'm referring to will be the Wimbledon final and then this one today. I also think, I think really the championship point narrative probably needed a Carlos Alcaraz win, not because of the number, but because Carlos's championship point that he had came on Novak's serve, and from memory, I don't think he had a chance. Whereas the Carlos
it
ones
was
were,
a +1 forehand
yeah,
forced error, and he didn't really have a
yeah.
shot.
Whereas the Carlos ones that he was saving, well, some of them, one of them in particular, I remember him being pushed left, right, and center, and ended up chasing down a shot where he pulled off an unbelievable passing shot. And yeah, although I think Novak, was he not on a break point, maybe at 5-all, where he pulled off a really good passing shot as well that just clipped the line. Anyway, whatever. There's so many epic points, and
I
during
think that was 4-5, not
was it
5-0, but that backhand pass, because 5-0 it will be Alcaraz serving. There was also that fourth championship point save from Alcaraz, which was like a huge forehand down the line. But that one you're talking about, of course, would have been absolutely legendary. And also the fact that Djokovic has only wasted match points 3 times in his career,
and
up until today.
won the match. You mean?
Yeah, wasted
Okay.
match points and not won the match. Yeah,
And
usually
probably never in a final. I would just
actually
randomly.
once in a final. Usually in Rotterdam 2007, Nadal in Madrid 2009. These were both 3 match points, and Cilic the only one in the final. Queens 2018 was just 1 match point, but that was the only time he saved. He wasted one in a final.
Yeah, maybe he regretted that deep return position, Ghibli, as we saw from both players in that third set. I think that maybe fatigue on both sides of the net were suggesting very lame second serves that both players were keen to gobble up for breakfast with aggressive return stances. Perhaps Alcaraz might regret that he didn't do that a bit earlier on in the match, maybe during the tiebreak and maybe at the beginning of the third set. But yeah, listen, I mean, both players would have some regret if they didn't win this match, but also they can take a lot of positives. Does this change anything in terms of the US Open? I don't really think it changes much for me. If you had Djokovic slight favorite going into New York, obviously that won't change. I don't think it suddenly makes Djokovic a heavy favorite. I just think Djokovic is not my favorite for New York because I think he might be a bit more vulnerable to someone such as a Daniel Medvedev.
Fair enough. The Alcaraz Medvedev matchup is definitely something extremely lopsided recently. Honestly, like you said, that if you had Djokovic as slight favorite, he's still your slight favorite. I think that goes for Alcaraz too. Like
Yeah,
I
me
just
too.
don't
I actually
think
do have Alcaraz slight favorite, and I haven't
yeah.
changed.
Yeah, like I just don't think this much changes the power balance whatsoever. US Open is probably slightly more suitable for Alcaraz compared to Cincinnati. I don't know if more suitable than Djokovic. And at the same time, it just seems like if we get the match, it's going to be an absolute classic. I guess another question is, who would hold up better physically? We kind of don't know that. Like Carlos was getting some weird hand cramps at the end, right? Trying to hit that double-handed forehand and at love one in the tiebreak, and also just showing that his hand is cramped, which kind of puts some doubts. Then there's also Djokovic, of course. For like an hour in this match, he was struggling physically, right? And the same happened in many matches recently for him. And obviously, the guy is so much older. So we'll see how that goes for New York. I would still put Alcaraz slight favorite, as just like you. And the fact that Djokovic won this one, it is some sort of a psychological advantage for sure. But I think whoever took this one, like the other, will know that they were right next to them, and I don't think it really changes anything. And if anything, you kind of might think that they have separated themselves from the pack even more, basically.
Yeah, they have. I mean, if there were, you could argue if Alcaraz had gone out in the third round or quarterfinal here or something, then that might sort of swing the pendulum towards Novak. But now they were both in the final. I guess the only other thing would have been a demolition job from one player or the other, especially I think if it came from Carlos. Bearing in mind that would make it 3-1 and a demolition job, but once it was as close as it was. And to be honest with you, even a set and 4-2, it was anything but a demolition job. It was just the fact that Novak was playing worse than Carlos. I think Carlos was a long way from his best in those 2 sets as well. But then in the third set, Novak was the better player for me. Carlos managed to pull out some worldies at certain moments and stay in there and hang in there, definitely. at times. But I thought Novak was the marginally the better player. I mean, the fact that he wins that tiebreak in the manner he did, and wins the match, I think it is deserved. But it was Carlos's will, it was Carlos's defense, and then some just unbelievable shots that were keeping him in the match, and maybe a bit of tired serving towards the end from Novak as well. But yeah, his tiebreak record now looking even more impressive in a way. I know, of course, he lost to a tiebreak to Carlos earlier in the year in Wimbledon, but yeah, okay. And I know it's pretty late here in Europe. Any sort of final sort of thoughts on the match or conclusions?
Yeah, I think we're not going to bed anyway for like 15 or 20 minutes. It's
I've been
kind of
drinking. I don't
impossible
know.
to.
This green tea, I guess, is going to keep me going for a bit longer.
Yeah, I was mostly thinking about the match keeping us
And the
going,
match, definitely, yeah.
and yeah, the entertainment of the third set. I don't really feel like sleeping. I also caught a short nap around middle of set two, I think.
I think that's when Alcaraz had a short nap too.
Yeah, like just before that nap, I already saw that Alcaraz nap. Yeah, maybe he was just waiting, for me to wake up, and then that's when he decided that there's time. But yeah, any final thoughts? Yeah, it's definitely one of the matches of the season, regardless of what you think about the first two sets. And yeah, in terms of big US Open takeaways, I know I will see a lot of this on Twitter, people saying that Djokovic has proven himself stronger or something. I think, yeah, just what we said, regardless of who won this match, they sort of proved that they are more or less equal, and both will actually have this in mind probably entering the US Open. It's not like Djokovic, if they play in the US Open final, is going to be like, oh, I beat this guy recently, of course I'm going to do it again. Or Alcaraz is going to be like, oh, I lost to this guy. No, I mean, they know that they should treat each other as equals. And maybe this is a bad comparison, but even before this match, I had these sort of vibes of Serena Williams playing Victoria Azarenka in 2013.
Did you?
Because
I
they
I
faced
had
each
some
other in
Serena.
Cincy.
I had some Serena Tomljanovic vibes as well, but go on, carry on.
Tomljanovic, that's interesting. Now, I was
Yeah,
just thinking about the fact that in 2013, during the US Open hardcourt swing, basically Azarenka and Serena were like the best two players in the world, and they played each other in Cincinnati, then they played each other at the US Open. Both matches were absolutely fabulous, tight third sets. Obviously, it wasn't quite Djokovic Alcaraz because it never, their lead over the field wasn't that huge. It wasn't like they were the top two players by such a wide margin. However, right now, if they play in the US Open final, it will be, I guess, a pretty similar story. And it looks kind of likely, we'll see how they recover. A match like this probably takes 4 or 5 days to recover from it. For a mortal like me, it would take 2
it
weeks.
might mean a day less on the practice court anyway.
Oh, for sure. I mean, tomorrow, neither of them, I think, is picking up a racket, and they would be foolish to. And if they do, I really want to see these photos, videos of the practice courts.
They could
And
practice on each other.
yeah, that would be cool. That would be like the news headline for every single magazine in the world. That would actually be such good promotion of tennis. Let's submit this idea to Goran Ivanisevic and Juan Carlos Ferrero.
Just having a quick look at some of the stats. I just think there was a lot in terms of absolute peak quality that we saw, as you suggested, in Madrid between the two. There was just too many unforced errors, and it was kind of sluggish for me for a set and a half, maybe even 2 sets. But listen, it's definitely the match of the year because there's so many different ingredients to include for that. I mean, not taking advantage of championship points, both of them, of course, having that scenario. One player serving for the match and not taking advantage of that scenario. It being a final, having the 2 best players on the planet still producing shots, just taking your breath away. Even if, like I say, the consistent quality wasn't quite as high as Madrid. It was just an insane scenario. Just having a quick look, both players will be disappointed with some double faults at inopportune moments. Alcaraz easily winning the ace count 11-2. Let's have a quick look. Break points, by the way, taken advantage of. I mean, that was the narrative for Carlos going into the match, but it soon became a narrative for Novak during the match, especially during that third set. I think altogether his break point conversion was like 3 from 16 or something like that. Maybe I'll find out exactly. Breakpoint save. Yeah, so 3 from 16 Novak took, whereas Carlos took 6 out of 10. It looks like from my stats there. So he must have broken serve double the amount of times that Novak did. Yeah, because Novak, of course, won 2 tie breaks, I guess. Or it's 4 out of 10. 4 out of 10.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
4 out of 10.
breakpoint saved, not
Yes,
converted.
4 out of 10. Yeah, so I don't. Perhaps, like I said, if Carlos had won comfortably, that might have changed things. But I do have Carlos as slight favorite. I do think that 5 sets was being suggested in the chat. You know, Carlos's record in 5 sets is insane. Is it 9 out of 10 matches he's won under that?
Berrettini, the only loss. That's what I can tell you.
Yeah, there's only one loss. I know it's either 9 out of 10
Yeah.
or 8 out of 9 or something like that he's won. So even Novak can't live with that. That stat, of course, may well even out a bit more as Carlos gets
Even
older.
Kei Nishikori can't live with that, and he used to be
Nishikori's record.
He used to be the record holder. I don't know if Djokovic has surpassed him already, but he actually used to be the record holder on the fifth set records. Yeah.
Who else can beat Novak? Do we think? Does Sinner have a chance at the U.S. Open
against Novak? This matchup sounds dreadful. I think one-dimensional power players don't generally do well against Novak, so I don't like it. Alcaraz, I mean, he has a better chance than against Alcaraz than against Sinner, and we've said that before, right? At Wimbledon, when Djokovic played Sinner and Medvedev played Alcaraz, I think we were talking about them potentially like swapping, right? And then that would give us more competitive matches, and that still holds up true, I think, for the US Open.
Does Rune have a better chance? If you're Holger Rune, do you have a better chance against Novak than you do Carlos?
Not after this season, after this warm-up swing, but in general, probably. You know, he has pushed Novak like virtually every time they played. Yeah. Even the US Open 2021, you know, one very tight set, let's say, at least, and then cramps, of course.
Didn't Rune win a set? I thought Rune won a set.
Yeah, he did. So the tiebreak second set, yeah. And then he just cramped all the way till the end. But he was on like a 13-match win streak, I think. He won 2 challengers in a row and qualified. Okay. So, you know, it was very explainable back then. Although, of course, Rune cramped like every other match back then. So.
Yeah. But I think Carlos will get over this pretty quickly as well. I mean, the fact that we've got a major now coming up. Yeah, I only make him slight favor, but listen, someone disagrees with that. I completely understand it, but I think Medvedev is a part of that reason. I'm not saying that I think the problem with Medvedev is he could easily go out almost any round, depending on what goes. I still make Medvedev my 3rd favorite, but who knows? Medvedev could go out to a number of players in the draw. I don't see many players that can stop Alcaraz or Novak. But then conversely, I do think that if Carlos won't care where Medi falls in the draw, but Novak will.
Zverev maybe is that a threat as well, wherever he lands, you know.
1 or 2 years ago, definitely.
I mean, you know, he's just had a very good Cincinnati, and I'm just assuming, you know, that's one of the guys who could beat either of them in the best of 5 as well. Where will he be seated? Actually, let me check. 12, right? Or, I mean, Kachanov is coming back or not? Oh, that doesn't change anything, I guess. So he is actually going to play. Well, he is guaranteed to avoid either of them before the quarters, right? So the quarters is the earliest that Zverev can play Djokovic or Alcaraz. So that's good for them, I think, and good for him.
Can Hurkacz beat Carlos in best of 5?
Maybe, you know, he's never gone past the second round at the US Open, but at least in theory, it shouldn't really be something, you know, justified or like, yeah. The Australian Open, he also had never gone past the second round before this year. He made the 4th round in 2023.
Tsitsipas isn't even figuring in this conversation.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna look at him in the draw really. Obviously a shitty record at the US Open, and also the form. I think I said it on one of these streams a few days ago that I actually started very strongly believing that he's not winning a slam. Whether that holds up true, we'll see. But that's how I've been feeling, perhaps more or less since Roland Garros.
Yeah. Okay. Just a little tweet here from Tumani Cariol, probably summing up to some extent some of those emotions at the end of the match. I think that's just about it. I don't want to talk too much because, of course, we've got ATP Weekly coming up in the next 24 hours or so. Sometime in less than 24 hours, we'll have ATP Weekly. I'm not sure.
That does not sound like a real story.
You mean on the tweet on the screen right now?
Yeah, the tweet.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure what it's getting at, but
I think that's a bit of a fanfic, but I get what he means. It
was just the first tweet I came across. But yes, we'll have ATP Weekly dissecting the tournament from a sort of a broader point of view, and also the thoughts and consequences that it may well have on the US Open, looking at the other players. Of course, Vanch here, who's actually been there watching it, suggesting it was an absolute privilege and honor to have watched two of the greatest athletes ever go touch. I guess you two will do a show, will you, for Iga and Carlos sometime between now and the US Open?
Yeah, we have to. We actually didn't do one after Toronto, Toronto, Montreal. So we definitely have to do one like tomorrow or on Tuesday, and then probably another one with like the draw preview. I'm assuming that's what we did at Wimbledon, and I think for the slams it makes sense. So probably 2 episodes coming out next week. Yeah.
Ghosty, regarding your Rafa question, just zero idea.
Yeah.
If I said otherwise, it would just be pure speculation. You could give me 10 different scenarios, and I think they're all plausible.
I can purely speculate that he is done, in the sense that while he might play, he is probably not winning much. So that's my pure speculation.
Yeah, probably that would be, if you gave me 10 scenarios, I might go 11% towards that, but I honestly don't know. I'd like to see him practicing a bit and then maybe form some other conclusions, but they can be deceiving too. Okay, listen, Damien, enjoy your show whenever that happens to be with Vance regarding Iga and Carlos. There's a lot of narratives to talk about from the last couple of weeks for both of those players. Thanks for joining me at what is now 2:55 a.m., but that's kind of typical Carlos and Novak forcing us to stay up late. I looked at the clock at one point and I was reminded of Tsitsipas Rafa from Barcelona. I think that match lasted about 3 hours, 38 minutes. And I think
the one where he saved the match point?
Yeah, exactly. I think that was 3 hours, 38. It could have been 3:42, but something in that ballpark area where he saved a match point, as you say. And I think he won 7-5 in the third. And I think we hit that just before the tie break today. So I'm guessing we went about 3 hours 50 maybe altogether today. 3 hours 49. 3 hours 49 we were today. So, I think that tells enough. So thanks, Damien, for joining me. For those of you joining as well, and you haven't subscribed already, please hit that subscribe button. Damien, I heard an intake of breath there. Wasn't sure if you had something to say.
No, I didn't know if you want to hear that.
Yeah, I do.
But basically, I was just about to say that it's still not Camilo Thomas Martin Etcheverry, Renzo Olivo, Lima territory last year. But
how long did that go for? 4 hours plus?
4 hours 21 minutes, I think. But I know it wasn't exactly that relevant, so I actually decided not to say it. Yes, you kind of forced it.
All right. Thanks, Damien, for joining me. I'm sure we'll be seeing Damien again soon. I've got a lot to look forward to over the next 7 days before the US Open gets underway. So make sure you hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. And thanks. It was great to see Ghibli as well joining us there right at the end. It's been a few weeks or maybe even longer since I heard from him, and his views are always interesting. Thanks for tuning in, and you know the drill. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.